And we're live. Hello and welcome to the 77th episode of Hex Therapy Live. I'm your host, Maddie ALLin. Tonight could be our best show ever. I'm so excited to talk about the Chicago meetup that's happening on Sunday, but more importantly, we will touch on Outrage marketing, but there's been a huge response to the clip that went viral from Game Theory Gang earlier this week on Tuesday. 19,000 people watched this clip of me explaining what Richard meant when he dropped some hints about the OA, and this is going to really expand our understanding of the game theory of Hex and help us understand why the price is dipping and what will happen in the future. So I hope you're ready to hop in to the DeLorean with me and go on this journey for today's episode. Hit the like and subscribe button. I'm really trying to get to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, so check it out. And let me see. Oh yeah, I have a new intro. See if you can tell some of the differences because I was working on this quite a bit earlier today.
It's from Maddie ALLin of Hex Therapy Live. I like Maddie. Maddie tries to make the world a healthier place. He's a mental health professional. He's done research.
Videos on sudden wealth syndrome.
There's nothing that a human being could do better than try and heal his fellow man.
Maddie ALLin's got that covered. He does emotional, feel-good, mind management, emotion stuff like as his gig because he's a therapist. That's what he does for a living. Like he helps heal people.
Hey, I can't believe 3,000 people watched Hex Therapy this last week. Like, I thought we were in a bear market. We are in a bear market. The price of Hex is doing horribly, but why are more people than ever watching? Well, let's get into it, right? So first off, we have to talk about Outrage marketing, and then we'll get to the good stuff, I promise. Because that's what the thumbnail was about, because I didn't realize the significance of all this OA talk before a couple hours ago. So anyway, stay tuned. Basically, what's the take on the psychology of this outrage marketing that Richard is doing? Well, I think that in a market where the price of Hex was only going up, I think, first of all, that would be an impossible market. We got close when we went from a third of a penny all the way to 55 cents. But, let's be real. I think people get their emotions crossed and they get upset about the leader, quote unquote leader. However, Hex is not a company. And whether you're new or old in the community, I think that we still need to say it over and over again. Hex is not a company. Right. And so what does that mean? It means that you can have no expectations of your peers. And normally those would be your coworkers. Not this time. All of us streamers, everybody who's out there fighting the Twitter wars and everything, they don't work for you. They don't work for Richard. We are all here as free agents. Right. And that's powerful. Although it can be disappointing at times, right? And so when your team is winning, then you can look past this and that. But in this case, right, the price is falling. And I'm going to help explain why the price is falling and what I think is going to happen in the future. I do have a DeLorean after all. Anyway, basically, one thing that I've noticed about Richard is that he's different than every other billionaire I know. And I don't know a whole lot of billionaires, but I know how billionaires are perceived publicly. And I know that almost every one of the 2,500 billionaires in the world, they have to report to a board of directors. Okay. Now, sure, there are, Saudi royalty, there's British, there's people who are not in the public spotlight at all, right? Not all 25,000 billionaires are known in the, they're not all public, right? But that tells you something, right? It tells you that they aren't willing to risk being in the public spotlight. It's not easy. I could tell you that, even though I'm only, being viewed by 20,000 people or something at a time, still, I can only imagine having millions of views like most of these billionaires, right? If you put billionaire in a YouTube video, it's going to get more clicks because people care about that. It's rare, right? It's still something that's rare, which means it's a pattern interruption, which is kind of a marketing term to describe something that catches your attention, right? And me, I was a neuroscience researcher for a while, for like 7 years, and I studied attention and impulsivity. And that's like, what most financial markets are made up of. Even if I wasn't studying that particularly, I was looking more at the basic research. Anyway, Richard is not like the other billionaires I know. He doesn't report to a board of directors, first of all. Elon Musk, right? He pops to mind as one of these. He's farther on the spectrum of, renegade CEOs, but he doesn't do that much wild stuff, you could say. But he definitely knows about outrage marketing, right? He knows about setting his Twitter profile picture to a rocket that looks like a penis. That's Elon Musk I'm talking about. He knows about, dating lots of women. He knows about saying uncouth things, right? These are things that people are criticizing Richard for. Well, I'm sure people didn't believe a whole lot in Elon when the price of Tesla was getting wrecked for so long. Even though I didn't follow it closely, I know that Tesla, it's only in the past year or two that it became super popular. It seems like almost every industry dominating thing, let's look at another, story of woe. Tesla dipped a lot. It was the most shorted company in the world. Then it became one of the most valuable companies in the world, right? Same thing with Amazon. Amazon did a 95% dip. And then it went on to crush the entire stock market, become one of the biggest companies in the world, right? And so if you look at the value of something before it goes viral, before people understand and appreciate how much it could sell for in the future, you could be really misguided, and you could be one of these people who is giving up the opportunity of a lifetime. Anybody who owns T-shares, even a fraction of a T-share, you're holding a winning lottery ticket for the future. And we're going to go over exactly what I mean by that. But still, back to the point of outrage marketing. Elon can get away with it, barely. Bezos can't get away with it. Bill Gates can't get away with it. Think of all the billionaires and none of them are out there having to go around the gatekeeping as much as Richard Hart, having to use outrage marketing because it punches through some of the noise, right? And it doesn't require paying middlemen. Most companies pay for brand advertising. They buy Super Bowl ads. They basically enrich middlemen like Google and Facebook, which are becoming more and more powerful entities in the world. We even see our beloved MetaMask. I think now it's starting to be controlled more and more by these venture capitalist groups, including Andreessen Horowitz. My heart is breaking. So, but that's why Richard's making a wallet. At the end of the day, I guess people can be outraged, but remember that the marketing, it's not directed at you if you've already bought in. And So they're different, completely different psychologies to the marketing for within the Hex community and outside of the Hex community. And we're going to talk about how the price of Hex, if we were at the all-time high and I gave you an opportunity to travel with me in time 10 months ago to when the price was 6 cents, of course you would have gone. Time travel is awesome. The most awesome part of time travel is knowing the future, being able to buy things super cheap that are going to be more valuable in the future. Well, of the many people watching, I think a lot of people, they would have taken the opportunity at 50 cents or 30 cents to go back and buy 6 cent Hex. And a lot of people would also hopefully be investing money that they weren't planning on needing anytime soon, a long-term savings plan, right? Or at least maybe everybody who participated, they would have some fraction in their bag that they would be able to hold in the long term, whether it was only 10% or 1%. This is going to be important because some of the facts that I have to go over with you today and conjecture and speculation suggest that the origin address, it's has continued to buy Hex throughout the entire history of Hex. And again, Hex is not a company, Hex is not a security, and thank God it's not. So even though we can't have expectations of the origin address continuing to buy, what we do know is that the price of Hex cannot go to zero. And, recently we've seen something like Luna that went essentially to zero. And I'm going to explain why Hex can't even get close to essentially going to zero like Luna did. Okay. Luna was trading at over $100, and now it's trading at under maybe 1,000th of a penny. Well, Hex has never traded at $100, so we can't compare it to that. But what we do know is that according to Gunter the accountant's OA audits and the information that Richard talked about in his debate with Eric Wall on Tuesday, let's start to put all of this information together. Now, I want to make sure we review it in case you want to be able to teach this to somebody else, right? You're going to have to master it. And again, I was surprised that not everybody in the entire Hex community that heard the Eric Wall debate understood this incredible point that was made. Crypto history was made in one of the statements that Richard Hart made. And I guess not that many people heard it. Maybe it was because they hadn't studied the background, or maybe it was because they assumed everybody else knew what was going on. All the new people or people who haven't, done deep dives into the OA. Or it could have been the audio issues that were plaguing it. But, the clip that was created by one of the Twitter community members, Executive of Dysfunction. I'll share my screen here really quick and just show you the source content here. So this is like the clip of Game Theory Gang that went viral and got 19.4 thousand views on Twitter alone. Incredible. And I'm recapping what I heard Richard say in the Eric Wall debate. And then immediately after that, there's a 1-minute clip of Richard saying what he said at the debate that's relevant to my summary. And what it said was Richard was saying basically that hypothetically, if he were to create a coin and have people sacrifice for that, like they did, or people buy it like they did in the adoption amplifier, which was a 1-year buy-in period at the beginning of Hex. If he had held that Ethereum that he collected for the duration of the market until the market reached its peak, and ETH did a 40x from the launch of Hex, then he could have bought back a lot of Hex coins from everybody, basically supporting the price all the way through. Now, we're going to talk about what this means, because I read through a lot of the comments and I know people have a lot of questions about what this could mean, right? Basically what it means is, again, that we're making crypto history, because I'm unaware that there's ever been a project or a product in the history of crypto, out of all 50,000 coins and tokens that have ever been created, I'm not aware of any other situation where the founder was buying back the majority of the supply at strategic moments throughout the coin's history without people catching on and the price getting ahead of itself. Almost every founder in crypto needs to extract value from the coins that they're making, because they aren't a billionaire in some other asset. And that's the same for lots of companies too. I mean, a lot of people who start companies that are worth tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, they only get paid out about like $2 million, because that's how the venture capital world works. And that's how public listing works. So we're really in new territory here, when every other coin that's been created, I mean, think about, Do Kwon, right? The creator of Luna extracted tons of value, right? And another reason why Luna failed is because that it was propped up by Bitcoin that was not sufficiently reserved. Hex just being market bought, that's not a guarantee. It's not a reserve, right? But we see that the ETH that was sacrificed was used very strategically and in a way that was highly efficient, right? And so we don't know if all that ETH is gone now or not, but we do know that there's hundreds of millions of dollars of stable coins, about at least $250 million, that are sitting there on the blockchain, in a sacrifice wallet. And so again, we're going to unravel all the mysteries here and really talk about what this means. So, where Luna was basically creating liabilities based on Bitcoin, which is a volatile asset, Hex does not create a liability, because you are not entitled to get your ETH back. But lucky for you, even the people who sold, some people were able to sell based on real people buying, real market demand, and then also the creator buying, which is a new concept. It's a completely new concept in crypto and in finance, practically, on this scale of, the Ethereum 40xing and then being used only to buy back probably when Hex was in a deep dip, right? So it's like everything that a normal coin and a normal crypto would do, plus all of this insane buy pressure, right? That was already force multiplying on itself. Anyway, just to close up the thread on outrage marketing, Richard is signaling to other people that he can't be controlled and he's not owned like, all these other CEOs and billionaires are. And that's not something that might be particularly attractive to people who have the biggest wallets in the world. But that's a good thing for you and I, because it allows us to continue to take advantage of this extreme asymmetry in the market, in people's understanding of how Hex works, right? It's a puzzle that's being unraveled as we speak. So How much ETH was put into the adoption amplifier? That would be something helpful to know. I did make a note of it back in the early days, so let me see if I can find it. So EOS did a similar launch style to Hex, and it got 4.2 billion of ETH. And then it did a 40x in the bear market. That's interesting. A note about kind of ETH being recycled. Let me see here. It was a lot of ETH. Let's just say that. It was more than Vitalik owns, the founder of Ethereum. Please chat amongst yourselves. Let me see. I can't find it. I should have pulled it out earlier. Anyway, maybe someone in the chat knows because I've said it before. How many ETH went into the OA? Anyway, so Gunter, the accountant, and Silver, the antidote, they've recently, Gunter recently reaffirmed the chain analysis that he's seen. You can go to t.me/hex trading and learn about pretty much every dumper in the market and all that kind of stuff. That's how I learned about whale number 13, who's the one who dumped the hex price down pretty low. But again, we're going to go over the philosophy of like what it means to have the OA and for hex to be treated differently by its founder than anything else, right? Other cryptos, like one that hasn't collapsed yet, but could in the future, is like Celsius, right? Because that's a borrowing platform that, I haven't been able to research completely, but it's got a slightly similar situation to Luna, right? Where it's like controlled by Machinsky. Machinsky was caught. There's a really good Medium article about how he was caught bragging about buying a dip whenever he was buying back 10% of what he had dumped 2 days earlier. So, that's what other founders are out there doing. Other founders are out there dumping the price. Richard is out there buying up the price when you least expect it. Now, let me talk about that. When you least expect it. So the reason the price of Hex can't go to zero is because it trades on an automated market maker. What that means is that you push the price against yourself the more that you dump. Also, because the OA and myself and anybody else who believes in Hex and really understands the situation here, we would all buy all the way down, I mean, heck, there were plenty of people in this world who were buying the Luna dip when it went down to zero. Like, I could have bought $500 of Luna when it was like, I don't know, 5 cents or something. And then it still went down another 99.99999%, down to 1,000th of a penny. So like, yeah, if people are buying that crap, that's obviously worthless. People will buy Hex, which obviously has a value. The OA is now, through Gunter's methods, which are not definitive, mind you, but are very suggestive, right? So Gunter went through all of the addresses in Hex and looked for patterns, such as large accumulations in like similar block amounts. Basically, if somebody was buying a certain amount and it seemed like their behavior was very similar to the OA's behavior, then it counted as OA coins. And so I think the methodology on that, it's not definitive, but it's based on my understanding of everything, it's pretty strong. The OA now owns 97% of the coins. But wait, if the OA hadn't been buying up the whole time on all the dips, when people were losing faith, when people were cashing out, when people were cashing out their mad gains, the OA was accumulating. It had to have been, because the OA got 50% of the supply at the beginning of the project, and then through emergency end stakes might have gotten another, I don't know, 2, 5, 10% of the supply. But it was only through buying that could have caused the OA to get up to 97% so quickly. And that's even without being mostly staked, right? The majority of the coins are liquid. But so the OA controls 97% of the liquid supply of Hex. This means that, listen, even if the OA sold all of its coins, Hex would still not go to zero, and Hex would still have a very bright future. Now, maybe it wouldn't pump as hard in the future because lots of people would be taking gains along the way. But in reality, even if the price of Hex went down to point, even if it went to an all-time low, which I don't think it will, but even if it did, it would still have value because it doesn't have any negative externalities. The OA has a proven record of benevolence and kind of altruism in a way, right? That's how we can imagine that the sacrifice addresses will react as well. But the thing that we can't account for is how low the price of Hex will go. We really don't know. It's up to us. It's up to the people who own any percent, any share of the 3% of liquid Hex that the OA hasn't bought yet, right? At what price will you give up your winning lottery ticket that hasn't come to term yet, right? Well, nobody knows. I was talking about 6-cent Hex half a week or a week ago because that's where I really felt like it blasted off from about a year ago, about 10 to 12 months ago, right? But that doesn't mean it can't go lower. A lot of people have accumulated Hex at a way lower price, and Hex continues to generate more trustless yield for everybody. But again, at the end of the day, the majority of the gains are going to come from adoption and are going to come from people buying. But it helps that the OA scooped up 45% of the supply that it didn't have to. That helps a lot. And it also makes you curious to think like the OA could continue to accumulate. It could be accumulating at every price. Now, it might only buy dips, deep dips, but it could also be buying all along the way, right? Because it may or may not know where the actual bottom is. But sure enough, Richard Hart, using Outrage marketing to talk about his PP, right? That routes around things, signals to everybody that he's a free agent and not like every other CEO out there, which makes a lot of people nervous. And that's the point, so that only true believers can keep buying in, right? It's a reverse gatekeeping, reverse psychology type of thing. But, then he's also out there calling tops and bragging about it. And, for some people, they kind of have to know his style of calling a top, right? He doesn't say, this is the top. But he has his own code words that he uses that are consistent. And at the end of the day, I think that, like, based on what Richard said and what Kareem and Wales said, Quanking was able to predict the top within a week, right? So still, super high, like super close to, like, within 5% of the top. Steph from Staker app called the top. He has it on his pinned tweet, like, I think to the day, right? And I have not asked him yet whether he did that independently or whether he did it based on what Richard was calling at the time. The reason why calling the top is so important is because it's proof that you can sell the top or you can make the top when you know where the top is. And even though Richard will never talk about his own finances, still we have so much information now to kind of reasonably assume, or to deduce, that Richard was selling the top and then buying back into Hex, and that is brilliant. I also think it's brilliant how the sacrifices are going to go for PulseX, for PulseChain and PulseX, because people sacrificed at, I think, prices that were higher than they are now in general. And that's really valuable because think about how automated market makers work. There's going to be a percentage of people who sacrifice that will never sell their coins. You couldn't possibly get everybody to sell their coins. And that becomes a force multiplier on everybody who will sell their coins versus how much economic value the sacrifice address has to buy back your coins from you when the market dips. And so for those who are impatient or who don't believe, right, in the darkest times, in the times when the coin dips 85% or more, then the OA might be there to buy your bags. And that's really price positive because it stops people from selling higher and allows more positive price pressure to exist, right? When people give up their coins, like that's the good thing about the price going down, is people are giving up their coins to people who want to play the game. And some of those will be traders and some will be long-term holders. And, the whole point of Hex is to pay your future self. That's the value proposition. So every time Liquid Hex trades hands, it has a possibility of falling into hands that will stake it for 15 years. And that's not possible in any other coin. Bitcoiners, they can change their mind at any time. They could hit their head, or they could meet somebody new, or they could get an overwhelming, feeling of emotions, and they could totally wreck themselves. In fact, that's a possibility that exists at any moment for anybody who's holding liquid assets, that they would sell in a moment of fear, or, based on something that could be manipulated, like information. At the end of the day, everybody's got their own financial situation that's different, but it's very interesting that Hex allows people to lock up longer over time, and that people, it seems like, can use this tool as a way to pay your future self. And to, I've said this before. I think I was the first to say this. Hex when you time lock your Hex, it protects you from the counterparty risk of yourself, because your own impulsivity, your own moments of weakness, your own emotional reactions to dips could put you at a much worse disadvantage if you didn't have the smart contract to keep you honest and resolute in your savings plan. So it's I think a really powerful thing to have these lockups, and it's a powerful thing to have the OA. And every part of this system is been engineered in the best possible way. If you think that Hex and Pulse and PulseChain cannot outperform Bitcoin and Ethereum, then you haven't been doing your homework. You just haven't studied these cryptos enough, right? Crypto is the highest appreciating asset in the history of mankind. The only reason, part of like a significant portion of the certainty that I have about Hex outperforming anything that's ever existed does come from the fact that Bitcoin and Ethereum were so successful, even with their flaws, even with flaws that don't exist in Hex, right? And so what do you think is going to happen if Pulse and PulseX double, right? Or maybe they do a 10x, a mere 10x, which the average, I've been crunching the numbers here, and I've been working on a really cool infographic to like put out there and go viral. Out of different PulseChain coins, like similar layer 1 coins, depending on which ones you include, if you included Ethereum and Bitcoin, it goes from like an average of a 200x or a 400x in like 300 days. It goes all the way up to an 800,000x in 1,000 days. Okay. That's how well layer 1s can do. Got AVAX, BNB, Solana, FTM, Atom, Celo, ETH, and BTC. I removed Luna from the list, but I added ETH and Bitcoin, which most people forget to do because the numbers get so stupid. But ETH did a 32,000x from its all-time low to its all-time high. Bitcoin did a 6.8 million x from its all-time low to its all-time high. Ethereum did it in 2,218 days. Bitcoin did it in just under 4,200 days. So how fast could PulseChain do a 30,000x or a 6.8 million x? Maybe in 1,000 days, in 1,002 days. That would be the average for those 4 coins if you include Bitcoin and Ethereum. So what do you think happens when PulseChain does a 10x? Well, people could sell 10% of their bag and get their principal out. And then they could take 10% of their bag and put it into Hex, which would pump the ever-living shit out of Hex. If we had millions, even if we had tens of thousands of new buyers, right? But ideally, there would be millions, right? PulseX also mind-crushing numbers because Ethereum and Bitcoin are not in the mix. I used Uni, 1inch, Sushi, INJ, Cake, SNX, LRC, and Rune. And the average for that comes out to like a 500x in 364 days. Now, I know the tokenomics of PulseX, I know it has more fundamentals. Both of these coins are deflationary, and a lot of the things that they're being compared to either are inflationary or they had a founder that was selling. Everything on the list had a founder that was selling, maybe except Bitcoin, which might explain its 6.8 million x in 4,200 days, 4,180 days, right? But in reality, it went higher than that because that's the starting price of Bitcoin at a penny, and really it traded for 0.7 of a penny and lower, if you really look at the history. But anyway, even being generous, right, it would have been actually over 10 million X, which PulseChain and Hex could do better on. But that's the thing, is in Hex, people can buy in if they use the traditional staking method of not being able to get liquidity out early. Basically, you time lock and you have to keep your time lock, or else, you know, you emergency end stake and lose the majority of your bag. Bitcoin did a 6.8 million X without staking, without trustless yield, without a community that was this involved at 2.5 years in, without time locking. So what Hex can do is much greater. And, you know, just because other people are selling now does not mean that Hex is not worth way more than it's trading for. And just because you bought at 10 cents or at 7 cents, like I did, doesn't mean that you're losing when somebody else gets to buy at 6 cents or 5 cents or a penny or half a penny, right? Because how do you know that the other entity buying isn't the OA? How do you know that it even matters that somebody else is buying after you? It doesn't matter. If somebody gets a better deal, who cares? If you're more of a long-term holder and not being a trader. Now, I made this point before that you might not know you're a trader, or you might not be honest with yourself, or you might be in denial. When I have made a financial plan and then the price of Hex suddenly drops 85%, like I might change my plan a little bit, you know? I might take a tiny little percentage of my stablecoin portfolio and put it back into Hex. And that makes me a trader for that $1,000 or something, right? I would expect myself to sell that as the price does a double or a 10x or something like that, right? So that kind of pits me against myself, right? And what we really need is long-term holders and patience for ourselves, right? Because as long as I don't lose any of my coins, and as long as I recognize that other people can get this amazing opportunity that I had to buy Hex at 6 cents 10 months ago, or today, whichever one I choose, you know, that's really important when we're on this journey to a 10 million X. It's really important. It's important to remember that there's no possible way for everybody to catch the bottom. It doesn't exist. It's an automated market maker. If everybody put their order in, it wouldn't get filled, right? And it would push the price to do something crazy, and then it would crash right back down, right? Because people would be selling it. So the way to get the price of Hex to go up is to time lock your Hex, not invest more than you can lose, or not invest more than you can save for the long term. And to let others know about the financial opportunity that is here, to let other people know about how Hex is different than every other financial instrument that's existed up until this point, because the founder is buying back, because the founder is not taking profit, because the founder is using outrage marketing, because the founder isn't owned by anybody, because the idea is still not yet understood by everybody in the market. That creates an enormous opportunity, but it's not free. You do have to lock up your money, and you do have to sit through the dips. You have to watch other people come in after you and get a better price. And then they get to take more of the pump away from you in the future. Well, stop being so greedy. Or, get greedy for others by onboarding them and pumping your own bags, right? But at the end of the day, it's not required for Hex to operate. It doesn't need new buyers. That took me a long time to wrap my head around because a lot of this stuff it's never existed before, and it's setting a precedent. And not all of the people who are paying the most attention, such as myself, have been trained in classic economics, like as much as an economist, or and thank God, because economists are pretty wrong these days. Talk more about greed. Okay, yeah. So when I was first learning how to make myself a better investor and improving myself, this was like in the first 6 months of when Hex came out, and it just so happened that I was experimenting with Hex and Mimblewimble coin, trying to practice mastering the emotions of fear and greed. And I started off with fear because I thought that greed would be a little bit harder and a little bit circumstantial. The first step was to master fear. And in order to master fear, I started with the simple activity of making sure that my dollar cost average buying in a bear market, in a time that was extremely painful, that I would only buy on red days. And so I had to wait for the next red day. And I stopped myself from buying on a green day. And I acknowledged the risk that I could get left behind, but that's greed. I was blocking that out. And I was just telling I was setting a rule for myself and following it. So the rule was, don't DCA in on a green day, because I noticed that I would not be setting my DCA based on a specific time frame, although that was one of the parameters that I used. I was kind of going based off of my mood a little bit. And I was more motivated to buy Hex and Mimblewimble coin on a green day than a red day. And so I wanted to train myself away from that. I didn't know that I was going to be getting a better deal, right? Because you never know when you're going to need to take money out, and you never know how long the price is going to go against your like average buy or initial buy. But that wasn't the point. The point wasn't to make the most money or to predict the future better than anybody else. The point was to buy on a red day. So I practiced that, and I did it multiple times, and it really hurt a lot, and I hated it, and it sucked, and it was hard to do, but I did it. Then a few months later, after I had practiced that on and off with Bitcoin and Ethereum and Mimblewimble coin and Hex, then I started to say, all right, now it's time to practice mastering greed. And I made lots of tables in Excel and different stuff saying, like, here's where I would sell, so I don't have to sell my whole bag, but here's how I would scale out. Here's how a dollar cost average out of something. And I chose like to practice a little bit on Hex and a lot on Mimblewimble coin. So I sold out a little bit on each of them, and I only sold on a green day when the price was going up. But then I realized that was a form of trading. And so even though I got practice doing that, I stopped doing that with my funds. Like I stopped trading. I stopped looking at it that way, right? Because, well, there were a number of reasons. But at the end of the day, like, it was an exercise that I wanted to do. And so it was much more difficult to, work on greed because it was so circumstantial, because the opportunity was only there at times when all of the information and all the emotions said, like, hold on to this. But selling it's very counterintuitive and difficult on the emotions. Luckily, I just so happened to do this during a period where the market timing was in my favor. So I ended up being able to extract, like, I don't know, a couple $1,000s out of Hex at the time and buy back just as many coins as I had in the beginning, right? And that's when I realized, and like now for like 2 years since then, I haven't been messing with trading, like, thankfully, because traders get wrecked and I would have gotten left behind. I would have learned the same lesson that Johnny Chaos learned when he was buying Hex at 1 Satoshi and selling it for 2 Satoshis. He got left behind. It's now tens of thousands of Satoshis or something, at least thousands of Satoshis. So it was those skills of mastering fear and greed that allowed me to practice being honest with myself and practice doing the things that I've done now that help support me in the bear market, which is, we knew that the bear market was coming. If you watched this channel, you knew it was coming. If you watched Richard, you knew it was coming. And hey, guess what? I hate to tell you, there are other super bad indicators right now for macro, right? What did Richard say? But to finish that point, like I sold enough, really Ethereum, and now I don't really have any Mimblewimble coin, and I sold Bitcoin, but I also sold some of my Hex interests. But really, it was the airdrops too that helped, so I didn't have to sell that much Hex, but I have enough USDC to live off of, and so I don't have to force myself into selling low, which is, if Hex went to a penny, I could probably buy a little bit and I could probably still be happy with what I have and get others in on the opportunity. But yeah, anyway, I forgot exactly where I was going with that, but the bottom line is, greed is one behavior, that takes practice to master. You're not going to master it simply intellectually. You're not going to only think to yourself, here's how I cannot be greedy. And without practicing it, the emotional side of things is not going to click for you, in my opinion. What I was going to say was having to do with more bearish indicators for the overall market. So, the Fed, the Federal Reserve interest rates, like, those are still probably going to be raised, like, over time. The other thing that I just saw was that NFT sales have dropped off. Like, Bored Apes are now worth half of what they were before. And that's one of the indicators that Richard, was pointing to when he said, before the entire market really corrects as much as it needs to, it's the NFTs that are going to go down first. People paying $1 million for a JPEG, like, they need to learn their lesson before anybody else. So, again, like, if you've been studying and listening along the way, you could have seen this coming. You knew that this was coming. Now, whether you acted on that or not was based on, in the end, whether greed was ruling your emotions. Because if you hadn't been so greedy, you would have sold enough cryptos along the way when you knew we were at the top, or that, that a bear market was coming. Like, you would have planned better if you hadn't been greedy, right? Like, getting all these mad gains, like, that trains you to be greedy. You have to understand, like, it's not your fault. Like, getting that dopamine hit into your brain, into your nucleus accumbens, and, like, the thalamus and all the different regions of your brain that are, like, loving to check your staker app and, check the prices of everything every day, or like multiple times a day, or like multiple times an hour, right? That you've been training yourself to be greedy and to not sell tops, and to sell when the price is going down, or to sell bottoms, right? Everybody's been doing it. Not everybody can sell the top, but not everybody has to sell the bottom. And you would hope that it would be the more experienced people that'd be doing better, and everybody else, they could get their turn to do better in the future too, right? So at the end of the day, it's really important for you to consider whether you've accidentally experienced some greed, and that's something you can work on. I can't tell you how to do it. I can't take responsibility for your life, but if you follow some of the steps that I used, that might be helpful to you. Yeah, Hex being down 80 or 90% right now, being down 85 or 90%, like that's new, right? That hasn't happened before, but that we need to remind ourselves like what the bullish case is for Hex. That helps. And then also to master fear and greed. Right now is a great time to master fear. Right now is a great time to dollar cost average in. Don't put all of your money in at any one price point. For me, I probably need to sit down and write out a plan, or continue to let my emotions guide me, but also let my practice guide me as well. And, I would buy, if it went, I bought it at 7 cents, maybe I would buy it 5 cents, right? Maybe I'd buy it 3 cents. And I would have to be okay with all of that. Just like I have to be okay if for the next year, the price of Hex doesn't go above 7 cents. I have to be prepared for that because I know that bear markets can last a year. I know that on this chart of how high can we go, I know that the coins that have pumped the most, people had to hold them for a year, or even in some cases 1,000 days to get the best price performance that existed. But think about that. A fortune could be made for somebody in only 3 years without working, right? And it's really not working when you can time lock your money, when you can send it to your future self and then take a step back, take a deep breath, work on self-care, work on self-improvement, make your mental health better, make your physical health better. Find the streamers that can give you tips about fashion and being positive and having healthy relationships and bragging about your pee-pee, right? Like there's tons of things that you could be learning and doing other than stressing about the market. Stressing is normal. Fear is normal. But it's only when we master fear and move on from it. It's only when we focus our attention on what matters. And if you're not overinvested and you're dollar cost averaging in, then you're not going to be one of the noisy community members. You're not going to be yelling this and that. You're not going to be dropping inappropriate links in the chat like some sort of bot would, right? But what you are going to be doing is you're going to be seizing the opportunity and practicing the skills. And I've said this before recently, but I want to say it again. When you do the right behavior and it doesn't feel good, praise yourself. Use positive self-talk. Remind yourself, hey, I did a good job. Pat yourself on the back when you buy a dip. Even if it's not the lowest dip that exists, remember, we don't know who got the lowest dip that existed because the OA is out here buying dips all the time. And so maybe that's reassuring to you, right? That maybe nobody who will ever sell bought at a lower price than you. And who cares if they did, right? Because it's simply fear and greed that is possibly getting your most emotions all twisted. Now, finances are also a part of like the resources we need to survive. And so I don't want to completely discount the emotions that people have, right? Like it's like an impossibly beautiful thing to be financially free. And we're not sure how many people can experience that all at the same time, whether it's 2,500 people who are billionaires, or whether it's 25 million people who are millionaires in the world. Maybe it's more than that. Maybe that's in the US. Anyway, or whether it's like everybody. Maybe technology, if we fairly distributed it, would literally make everybody rich enough to be financially free, and then people would choose to spend their time doing other productive things. You know, it's like, if I don't really know that much about the economics of like Saudi Arabia, but like, you know, if they enriched their population by sharing the natural resource of oil, all that trillions of dollars of oil money that they've gotten, you know, like that, that's like sharing the benefits of technology and resources in a way that isn't necessarily socialist, or people could comment on that. But at the end of the day, the point is that like the mad gains that technology creates, they don't have to be only held by central bankers. And that's really important too, because when we think about the ethics of capitalism, and when we think about the ethics of like getting rich and not being greedy, but being able to have more than others, you know, it's important that everybody has as equal of an opportunity as possible. And it's important that, you know, that we all kind of work together to understand what is possible, because it all comes back to incentives. It all comes back to game theory. And like the central bankers, they're not the ones who are going to tell us that everybody can be a millionaire, like do whatever they want with their time. But when you see the number in your portfolio going up and down violently, some of the fear is real. Some of, you know, the uncertainty is real. But again, from my experience, it's finding the right balance between fear and greed, getting them in check enough to the right extent that allows people to do the best in the market, which is really to time lock your money. And let me make a comment about the emotions of time locking, because it sucks to send money to your future self. It really does. I remember at certain points, I ended up practicing after mastering fear and greed. Now I have liquid hex. What do I do with it? Well, I ended up staking it, and that wasn't easy either. That was a bummer of an emotion. And so, you know, it sucks, but now I get to benefit that. Now I get to benefit from that over time. Now I've solved a problem of counterparty risk with myself, with my future self. I don't have to worry about my future self screwing things up because the penalties are too great. Because the rules in Hex say that if I emergency end stake my 15-year stakes, I'm not going to get anything for them. So my past self has forced my current self into a savings plan that spreads out my wealth over time and removes me from the possible impulsivity or the possible emotional reactions that I would normally be burdened with, right? Like all of the energy that I could be spending worrying about how, you know, many millions of dollars my portfolio is worth or whatever, you know, like it could, now it could be spent promoting mental health, promoting Hex, making really cool intro videos that I worked really hard on. And even the meetup that is coming up here in Chicago this weekend. I know it's kind of last minute, but I promise it's for all you Midwest Texicans, it's really going to be something cool. Let's see. I have a tweet about it. Here it is. I really like doing meetups in bear markets. So this is Art, who donated $2 million to an animal rescue, and this is in Northern Illinois. We're going to have a grand opening ceremony on Sunday in between 2 and 4 p.m. It's an open house. Anybody can come to Kankakee, Illinois. I'm going to have the DeLorean there. We're going to have Corvettes. We're going to have a car show in the parking lot. I will buy you a Red Bull. The location is here on my Medium. You can follow it by going to this tweet and then go to my Medium page. You can read the blog. I'm going to keep updating there. We're going to do a live stream from there, so everybody's included. Johnny Chaos will be there. That's amazing. Johnny Chaos is one of the most popular Hexicans of all time, even though he never intended to be. He's just the perfect combo of smart and cool and anti-influencer, right? Anti-corruption. And then Hex Photographer is the one who did such an amazing job covering the Hex conference that I hosted in Las Vegas. And you can go to hex.photos and see all the amazing photos there. If you come to this meetup in Kankakee, Illinois, you will have the services of Hex Photographer. And he and his assistant girlfriend, Katie, will be able to take professional pictures of everybody there. You could get a picture in the DeLorean, or we're going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony and a giant check, and really awesome hangout. I was told there might be a celebrity there, but we haven't confirmed it yet, because getting such a big celebrity like this, like for free, and to be on site is an incredible task. But I heard it might be possible. So there's like a 10% chance of rain and a 60% chance of a super awesome celebrity being there. But can't guarantee that. I do know that Johnny Chaos and myself will be there. Hex DeLorean, Hex Photographer, Art, and anybody else who's there locally. Here's the address and the time. We might get started a little bit early. We might go out for dinner and drinks after the grand opening. Here's myself and the Hex Photographer, Pascal, Johnny Chaos. I love this picture of him from the Hex conference. And there you go. I'm going to go to the chat now, and we'll see what everybody has to say. We can answer some questions and see what's up. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hit the like and subscribe button now. Trying to get to 10,000 subs. There's probably a lot of questions and commentary about the OA stuff that I was talking about. And in the future, I'll probably make some slide presentations about all this stuff so that the information can be presented in the most clear way possible. I think that the fact that it's not presented in the most clear way possible already is just opportunity for you, if you get it. And if not, stay tuned, I guess. Staking Hex has a lot of similarities to Brian Johnston's project Blueprint. Keep the ego out of the equation to the benefit of your future self. Have you been following his progress in longevity? I have not. Hey, what to do if my Twitter isn't working? I would say reach out to Twitter. I don't know. What do people do when their Twitters like get banned or something? Think about what you did and then ask around. In Telegram, I would go to Telegram, like try to ask people like, hey, what should I do? Because I don't have the answer for you, but I know there are people out here who would. Or you can make a separate account and then ask on Twitter. The OA means the origin address. So that is like in all reality, it's the founder's address, but we don't call it that because we don't expect the founder to do anything with our funds. And if we called it the founder's address, then that would confuse some people into thinking that Hex is a company, and it would be more easily, like right now, it's not easily characterized as a security. If you put money into a pool with expectation of profits, according to the US Securities and Exchange Commission, that's called the Howey test, and it means that you're a security. So sorry that it's such weird language and like seems shady, but too bad. Like that's how the laws are written. So to be legal, most cryptos don't care about that because they think they're above the law, but like Hex is so strong, it follows the laws and doesn't have to worry about being a security. Who holds the majority of the Hex? Probably the founder, who's a billionaire in Bitcoin and Ethereum and USDC coin. And, you know, so why would they ever have to sell their Hex? And the on-chain evidence shows that they've been buying Hex instead of selling it, which is different than pretty much every other crypto that existed. Has to be a Twitter issue. Okay. Richard Megan nailed for tax evasion since he owns the sacrifice address and sold a lot for stablecoins. He sold it when it was coming in. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he is paying taxes. Maybe maybe he'll just pay a fine if it's an issue. You know, like, what are you worried about? That way, it hasn't sold a Hex. You know, for all you know, Richard could still be making money off of like affiliate marketing or some shit like that, you know, he sold his company for, or, you know, he could be paying taxes. What do you know? Like, what do you know about his tax situation? Like, don't FUD. It's good to ask questions. I don't mind this question, but I'm just saying, like, everybody's all worried about Richard not coming to the US and this and that. Like, all I can say is like, Richard will come to the United States. All right, people, like that's my strong opinion. And I'm not going to tell you why I think that, but I think Richard will come to the US. But while he's not coming to the US, you should thank your lucky stars that he hasn't yet, because that's more opportunity for you. And that's more FUD out there in the world for people to eat up instead of eating up all this cheap Hex. So, you know, you should be thanking Richard for not coming to the US yet because of how much opportunity it affords you as somebody who is learning about Hex so early compared to all the millions of people who will come in later, right? Yeah, I mean, like, but if you're still a US citizen, I think that doesn't matter. I'm not an expert on all this, and I don't want to tell people and then they do something wrong. But like, again, who cares? Like, the only reason the tax thing got brought up is because people were hypothesizing about why Richard wouldn't come to the US. And Richard literally told you why he wouldn't come to the US. And you're still questioning it because y'all haven't realized that everything Richard has said is true, except for his prediction on when the code would be done, which he didn't have control over, and told people he didn't have control over. So literally everything else he's ever said has been fact-checked as true. Okay. So like, if Richard is telling you the reason he's not coming to the US is because he hasn't gotten an invitation from somebody famous enough yet, and because he doesn't like gun violence, then I'm here to like remind you that that is the reason why. There isn't another reason. If there was another reason, that, you know, who cares? Like, a track record can only be so perfect, and it's Richard Hart's track record. Like, the fact that PulseChain didn't come out the time when he initially said it would, like, you had to be following him on a long enough time scale to understand that that was good for you and for everybody else, because it removed the traders from the system and it allows the price of Hex to like not be supported by traders. Also, the price of Hex doesn't have to be supported by the OA. It's a good thing because then you get to buy Hex cheaper. And if you're just trying to sell Hex, then you should make that, again, you should like set aside enough money during a bull market to be able to survive a bear market. And if you didn't know to do that, or if you didn't master your emotions of fear and greed, then like now you're going to get another chance to do that probably in your life. Founder has never confirmed ownership of the OA or flush address keys. Hey, Matt, hey, Bob. Thanks for pointing that out, because sometimes I just assume people understand that. He's been measuring the biological age of his organs. He actually reached longevity escape. Okay, you're talking about the person that you were telling us about, who reached escape velocity. That's pretty cool. Hopefully, I mean, RH has also never claimed ownership of this sacrifice address either. Correct. Hey, thanks for the positive feedback, Cram. His other startup is creating a cheap wearable BMI similar to an MRI machine. Body mass index. Okay. Keep on your radar, everybody. America is scary right now. Who could blame RH? Yeah. You know, I invited RH to Vegas and he said he doesn't like Vegas. Okay. So probably because there's been a mass shooting in Vegas, and because he doesn't like gambling, and for like any other reason, right? But that doesn't mean he wouldn't come to the US. I wonder if the OA will practice similar buying habits with PulseChain and PulseX as it did with Hex. If so, it might be bullish in that case. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to save you from still having ups and downs. Like the OA buying doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that you can't still have severe dips, because it doesn't control all the coins. It just is making it so that it can rip harder, because the people who bought the bottom aren't necessarily people who are going to sell during the next bull run. That's what it really means. If Pulse is delivered before the Tesla Cybertruck, I think we are good. Hey, that's a really good comparison. Great to see Hex proceeds supporting animal welfare projects. Totally. I totally agree. Yeah, I don't think that's it. Let me go back here. How far up can I go? All the way back. Hey, Maddie, hope you're doing well. Thank you. Loving the consistency. Excited for another stream. My pleasure. And we're live. I need a new catchphrase. That one's getting old. It's better than just like, hey, we're ready to get started. Take your seats, everybody. Clip was awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I thought it was cool too. Just got 5,000 Hex. Boom. Well done, my friend. Loved, liked, and shared the stream. How about you? Hey, thanks, Susie Q. Price is way up compared to when? By the way, when did PulseChain first get announced? It was March 25th, 2021. The reason I know, you can look back. I was the one to post the first video on YouTube that had a recording of the Telegram chat where Richard announced it. So you can go back and listen to that recording. It's about an hour long, I think. The price of Hex at that point, did I take a screenshot? Can I tell you when it was? Price of Hex at that point was 1.3 cents. And then after that, let's see. After that, well, before that, even like 10 or 20 days earlier, it was like below a cent. And 10 days before that, it was like 1/8 of a cent. So the price was swinging around down there. But really, the biggest landmark for me was when Motley, the investor, announced that people could use, it was the best game theory to use Hex to sacrifice, and that would get more Hex off the market. And that was around 6 cents when that started to pump the price, that people realized they could do that. Hello from down under. Do we have a chart of RH's subscriber growth over time? Can we chart that and index against the various wild marketing moments? Probably all confirms the thesis. Yeah, I don't know. You don't have the counterfactual of how much he would grow if he wasn't talking about those things. But yeah, I mean, if you looked at streams where he did do outrage marketing, and then you looked at like the next video where he didn't, and then you did like an A/B back test, yeah, you might be able to find how effective it was. But remember, the larger game theory there is that like big institutional players would be nervous because they represent more people. They would be worried that one of their major investors would be pissed off at Richard for outrage marketing. And that's why they would stay out, because their reputation to so many different people, because they're so centralized compared to an individual person choosing to say, well, I don't care about the outrage marketing. I care about the product itself. Or, taking some other mental strategy to justify, or basically to like not limit their own investment based on somebody else's behavior, right? That's a legacy thing. That's a legacy like attitude, is we need this founder to act right, to be predictable, so that we don't lose our money to them. Well, first of all, there are people out there that are predictable who still extract tons of value and are themselves, as a founder, a negative externality, like every founder ever, or like specifically Alex Machinsky. I'm going to use him as an example from now on, like, because I read that article that he extracted over $100 million from his own Celsius token. Like, good for him, but it didn't do as well as it could have. Because he was dumping it, right? So, and again, he had more institutional buyers probably because he was acting right. Whereas for us, because we aren't institutions, because we're individual people, it helps us so much, right? Institutional investors, they have to sell in a 10x sometimes. Sometimes they have to like, create negative externalities here and there, more supply being more centralized by players who have mixed motives, or who, like just aren't representing themselves. It's a big difference. So that's a great question. RH had 70K followers last July. Now it's 225,000. Wow. These are the hardest times because you cannot see the future. Yes, hindsight is safe. All I can say is Outrage marketing has given my PP an inferiority complex. Hex is not traded at $100 yet. That's something I said. Thanks for pointing it out. I didn't watch the debate. I couldn't stand the camera and audio. I don't blame you. I made a comment on Game Theory Gang that lots of smart people can't handle audio and camera problems. Like, it just gets on the nerves way too much. I hope one day it even trades at $10. That would be amazing. How much of it will you hold on to if it goes super low before it goes super high? Strategy? It's a good time to buy more Hex. Everybody that is crying now will really be crying in a couple of years because of not taking advantage of this dip. Just my opinion. Yeah, sometimes it takes teamwork to make the dream work. Hey, fam. Hey, Crypto Compassion. He had 113K followers on September 28th, 2021. Have a screenshot from when I was number 750 that he followed then. Was in shock. Good for you, Scott. Someone is purposefully selling to push the price down. Yeah, they are, aren't they? And they're getting other people to follow along. Yo, my Twitter's on the show. Hey, thanks, Shifty Sheep, for posting that clip that went viral. You rock. So RH is going to buy up Hex soon and pump it? Well, no, we don't know that. We don't know that there are any funds left. We don't know that that's the plan. But the point is 97% of this, like, the point is Bitcoin did so well. Bitcoin did a 10 million X without buyback pressure that we know of. So what do you think is going to happen? Somebody's going to buy up Hex and pump it. I don't know about soon. Soon isn't in the vocabulary of a bear market. RH will buy up all the PLS and PLSX and do a 10,000X. Not if everybody else does first. It's only going to be at certain times. 2.371 million ETH. Yeah, that's about what I calculated. I think I calculated about 1.9 million ETH. It's incredible. Either way, it's incredible. I just bought 5,000 Hex. Shall I buy more or wait for 4 cents? It depends on you. Hi, beautiful chat. Dingo. Hexinfo.io shows that. Not sure how accurate it is. Buy the dip. How long do you think this bear market lasts? I think the macro situation is still yet to play out. I think that now that the NFT market is starting to crash, I think that the rest of the market can crash. I said before that I think that Hex can go to 6 cents, and that's a point of resistance. And then I don't know where the bottom is below that. Maybe it's 1.3 cents, which is where PulseChain got launched, or the idea got launched. Be nice if PulseChain got launched. But I've also said before that personally for me, I might buy some more ETH at $600. But I got the benefit of having bought it back at $100 and $200. So it started to feel expensive at $600 to me. But imagine how much pain that would be for the market. I mean, and I don't know all this technical analysis stuff, but it's like, you know, the NFTs are starting to crash. Richard says after that, then everything else can crash too. You know, all this stimulus money being extracted. I think there's a lot of macro stuff that says more pain to come, more bear market. And if you look at the Bitcoin cycles, we're in between two halvings. We're 2 years in to a 4-year cycle. So that's when usually you have a bear market for another year. If it went to all-time lows, it would have zero value in my life. What a weird thing to say. Have zero value in your life? Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of people would buy it up. Stop making me FOMO. Well, hopefully we balanced it out over time. Hey, Jim Rat Crypto. Really good to see you here. Enjoyed your show earlier with Gunther. It was amazing. James Bond. Hey, everyone. From Hex Token to Maddie. Good times. Hey, Bob. Thanks for joining. The OA is ready to buy the dips for the squad. I'm sick and depressed. Hope that you get better soon. There's not enough buyers to buy all of the OA Hex. That's not true at a certain price. If it went down to 10-0, if it went down to 1 Satoshi, then you could buy 100 million for $30,000. And the OA has, we can do the math here. I ain't scared. We can do the math on this. So we might have to get out Wolfram Alpha. People want to know how much money it would take to buy all of the OA's bags, right? If the price really goes to zero, like really goes to zero, then somebody could get all the Hex for free, and then they could not sell it for free, and then that would create a price again, right? So like, it's not going to zero, but let's do the math, right? Of how much it would cost to buy up all the OAS bags. So if it goes back even to, remember Hex traded below a Satoshi. But let's say it just goes back to a Satoshi. Let's not even go to the worst or best case scenario, however you want to see it. So what the OA has, I should bring up my chart. I've got it right here. Cool. OA Hex. Oh, should I share this? I should share this for you people who want to take a screenshot and know all the cool numbers. Here we go. This is super old from Gunter, the accountant's original audit that's been taken down because you were mean to him. Back when the OA only had 95.5% of the liquid Hex, right? But that was 500 and we'll say 550 billion. So let's be generous and say that the OA now has, I don't know, 600 billion coins. Yeah. So 600 billion divided by 100 million should be the number of Bitcoin that would be needed to buy the entire Hex supply. Should be 6,000. So it'd be 6,000 times, let's say, like, and it depends, like, are we valuing our Satoshis? Like, are we valuing our Hex when it was at its all-time low compared to Bitcoin? Are we pricing in how Bitcoin went from like 4,000 back then to 30,000 now? But let's do the most generous thing, which is to say that the Bitcoin is costing $30,000 now, right? So that's 6,000 coins times $30,000. So that'd be $180 million, right? So if Hex went to 1,000,000th of a Satoshi, I could buy everything that the OA owns for $180. Okay? That's the math. If Hex went close to zero, then I could buy all of it for $180 and then I could never sell, right? Or I could time lock it, or I could lose the keys or whatever, right? I don't know if I'd be that nice, but it could be done, right? Of course, that's not reality, because the balance of probabilities would say that Motley and all of you in the chat who understand Hex would all be buying it all along the way. But still, those are the numbers that we have to play with. Like, so whether Hex trades for 1 Satoshi and you could buy all of the OA's bags for $180 million, or whether it trades for 1/1,000,000th of a Satoshi and you could buy it all for $180, or we could all go in on it together. Like, it just depends who buys it on the way down. Like, that's why it's so powerful that the OA buys it and doesn't sell it on the way down and doesn't sell it on the way up. And then it's only the people who competed with the OA to buy the Hex when it was going down, when nobody believed. And there's just very few believers. And sometimes it's the greatest believers are, people who aren't institutions, people who have their emotions in check, and people, some people who don't have their emotions in check. But it's like, how much do you want to be bought by strong hands? And then how many of those strong hands will convert to smart hands by using the smart contract, so that you don't have to be strong, you can be smart, and time lock your Hex so you don't have the counterparty risk with yourself, right? So there's not enough buyers to buy all the OA Hex. False. When PulseChain is announced, Hex will pump and dump on the ETH chain, but then Hex on Pulse will pump. So we will all be happy, and PLS and PLSX will 100x in 10 months. If it 100x's in 10 months, then it would take very little percent of that to pump Hex even more, and then generate a reflexive system where more people are interested in all of the RH products. Hey, Daniel, good to see you. I love guessing. You bought too much ETH then for your lifestyle, sir. Molly, the investor, great to see you here. Not sure if you're still here, but I'm glad you stopped in. I think 1 to 3 cent Hex is on the table, but this is where I would start to DCA and just ramp up the amount of my buy if price continues to fall. There you go. Everything is good. Awesome. Amazing. Motley ready to blow his wad. James Bond to the moon. Thomas Turner. Hey, Maddie and friends. This is where diamond hands come from. Got my diamond that Johnny Chaos gave me. Very cool. In general, Hex is still tied to ETH at about 75%. The overall market is bearish. My plan is to weather this storm. Selling my house for Hex. There you go. Let us know if you changed your mind based on any information telling both sides, hopefully, in this stream. Been buying since 9.5 cents. This is accumulation time. Would love the OA to put in a huge stake, then then emergency end stake it to reward 50% to current stakers, aka the OGs. Why would it do that? That would give more money for people to dump. Well, actually, it would spread it out over time. So that'd be kind of cool, I guess. But like, it would not be as good as people having to buy their own and earn their own instead of getting a free handout. I could tell you, part of the reason why the OA hasn't probably come in to start supporting the price, and I don't know this from Chainalysis or anything, like it could be that the OA buys at every price, but all of the hexagons out there who are putting money into other projects, like that means you have too much money. And the solution to that is not to give you more money. until you put your own money into Hex and stop like, putting all your money into Hedron and Pulse Dogecoin and Luna and all these other things, like, I'm not sure that the OA is really in a position to help you. Hate to say it. Because I do like Pulse Dogecoin. Because I got a lot. Because I created a lot of wallets. My bad. Is watch collection half the liquidity pool? Franklin, good to see you. We're the strong hands, part of the market maker. His watch collection is worth half the liquidity, so we good. Hex is going to survive the bear market. Other coins will be gone forever. Hex was 18 cents when sacrificed for Pulse mid-July. What's up, Dr. More? Diraj? Please launch after the highest of stakes debut. I highly doubt that, but then because the documentary said that they were waiting for the launch, but they thought the launch was going to be now. And then they were arguing with Richard about whether they should wait, and they wanted to wait. So I think they're playing it by ear. I don't think they've decided. I remember fondly as that was my first buy right there. The OA can shadow buy in the same way that people shadow sell. Pull liquidity. Please launch now. Thanks. Much appreciated. Motley's not trying to blow his wad. I know this bear market can get really bad. I'm trying to be the guy with tons of dry powder after everyone else has blown their wad. There you go. Bigger bags for those who sacked. Hex price is at 6.66 cents. Creepy. I know someone who won't sell 200 million PLSX because he lost his seed phrase. There you go. Look up The Sky is Blue. Predict launch, Maddie. I explained why I can't predict that recently on the last stream. It's because all this Geth is being rewritten into Go. That's a major change. So PulseChain is like not go for launch currently. We are living in exciting times. Hex isn't immune to macroeconomic bear market. It might resist it better than other assets, but will still feel the pain as well. I'm excited for the opportunity and grateful. Crazy how we all ended up here. We're all rich in the future. Maddie went and checked. Cool. Look for a buying opportunity of PulseX and both versions of Hex at launch. Too many people will be focused on dumping everything else for Pulse. Glad I sacked and staked. Me wallet's been shrinking. LOL. I comment between sets of bench presses. Oh, nice. Good for you for working out. I've been running 4 miles every day for the last 4 days. Love your show, bro. Awesome content. Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for tuning in. I was all in at 6.9 cents. Well done. Maddie is great. Thank you. Has it been 15 years yet? That's a really good question. I ain't no trader. I buy and hold. Only Hex that's left my wallet. Only Hex that's left my wallet was to sack or stake. Wow. Well done. True Hexican or true strong hands. 10 million X, like what I'm hearing. With Bitcoin, though it pumped at a time back in 2013 when there was basically no other choice, that period was a huge part of the exit made, the multiples it made. Now there's so much choice, there's less concentration. Good point. It had the first mover advantage, but it's still relevant that Ethereum did a 32,607x in 2,218 days. What? You're not happy with a 32,000x? But still, again, like Bitcoin's inflationary, PulseChain's deflationary, Hex gets locked up and bought back. Like Hex has basically got like a shadow buy and burn going on like for 2.5 years that nobody bothered to like emphasize. But maybe that's just because you're all still trying to accumulate. Did I ruin the secret? Motley, all the RH products will have their run up. Focus majority of your dry powder on what's going for a discount at the time. People running for PLS first will be sad to see if it produces the lowest yield. The RH truth engine saves you from yourself. Greed is good, Gordon Gecko. Greed is bad, me. Nice quotes. Even the FOMO for a low price is greed. Yes. You did it. Go, Maddie. Go, go, go. Hey. Yay. Haven't ever thought of what the airdrops will do. It's just a bonus. Well, some people might not have to sell, such as myself. The airdrops really put me in a position where I can go a year without even selling the interest that I have in Hex, which is worth less and less as the days continue until it'll be worth more and more in the future. To be fair, Hex is down 90%. Toby One, good to see you. Can't lose if you don't sell. Rothko says, I kick greed in the balls. Arth, wait for 2025. Everyone calls NFTs overpriced JPEGs since RH said it, just so they sound cool and self-opinionated. I mean, is it overpriced if you have a willing buyer and a willing seller? But then again, all the price signals in the economy are like distorted when the Fed doubles the money supply and there's so much economic disturbance, you know? I would say used cars are overpriced used cars these days, but maybe it's just the money being worth less. But yeah, the JPEGs, $1 million JPEG, I mean, those tweets that sold, I mean, certain asset classes have more bubbly behavior than others. And that's because probably of the low liquidity of NFTs by nature that causes them to pump and dump more than anything else, because people don't realize that the price is dumping, or there's probably ways to manipulate that market that are more advanced than normal tokenomics. Great insight. Hey, I'm glad I thought of something new. Dave Down Under. Yes, you haven't lost anything if you haven't sold. We were all greedy, nearly all of us anyway. Yeah, I mean, I'm still human. I still experience fear and greed. People felt priced out at 56 cents, then feel cheated at 8 cents. Sad. Hexiest man in the world. Hey, what's up, Maddie? Is anyone having issues? Okay, we talked about issues with Twitter. You're giving good advice. I'm glad. I'm holding for the next bull market. Then I won't want to sell then either. Exactly. I mean, like, if you just think about how everybody was waiting for a 10,000x, and from the all-time low price of Hex on day 33, when it was 0.00005 cents, going up to 50 cents was the 10,000x that everybody's waiting for. And not everybody sold the top because not everybody was honest with themselves that that was what they were waiting for. Everybody changed their plan when they felt how good it was, and they experienced all the greed all the way up to 50 cents. Like, but there were plenty of people who were ready to sell that. And in hindsight, but also in foresight, like, if I wasn't so greedy, I probably could have called that a little bit better. Yeah. it was kind of obvious looking back that like, oh, it makes sense that the people who were the least greedy like took some gains at exactly a 10,000x. This is great. I'm glad you find it helpful, Pete. But when the OA is done buying, I'm just not too sure. But remember, then the normal market dynamics can take over. Just because the buyback ends doesn't mean that the market's doomed, right? It just means that the market can become stronger with stronger hands, and that it doesn't mean that the price won't go lower than it has or won't go to new lows. Let's say it's the first 90% dip in the history of Hex, even though it's not the lowest price it's ever been. Like now, when Hex gets ready to pump, if the OA has bought a bunch, it can pump harder because there are less people to sell then on the way to the new all-time high. Or if the OA is done buying, then you just have normal buying and selling on the way up again. I have 4 different stakes. That helps me not worry about the market. Well done. I'm going to stake some more. Good for you. Very good idea. That's what I've done during times when I was experiencing fear or greed. After I practiced like buying dips and selling tips, then I practiced staking dips and tips. And that's a good tip. Good points, Maddie, for sure. No one is falling for the casino scam. Yeah, there was a spammer in the comments, wasn't there? Got him. Hex has been in a bear market for 6 months. We're just in denial. Yeah, I think it's been 7 now, 7.5. New record. New opportunity. Be nice to the bot. Smash the likes, says Crypto Gains Club 369. Shout out to you. Anyone see Crypto Coffee video earlier that was live? I caught the end of it. It was about like numerology or something interesting, right? Like not everybody's into that, but Crypto Coffee has a huge following and has put in so much awesome work into the community. Like it's really impressive. He's like the #1 Hex YouTuber other than Richard, I think. And yeah, so there were 555 people tuned in live when I was watching. Hex top 100 will be the next Forbes top 100. Totally. Anarcho-capitalism is the way. But who keeps all these cryptocurrencies from crashing or wild fluctuations? Nothing. I bought a little and could again in 5 days. There you go. People like you, Hex Token, Rags, Whales, etc., have all trained myself to understand the times we are in. Thank you. My pleasure. Just paying it forward from people I've learned from. Hit the like for a wealthy future and subscribe for eternal life. Now that is a good deal. I would do that myself. What up, Maddie and peeps? Everyone needs to chill and accumulate. Don't miss out. When recovery happens, you might wish you had your own DeLorean or that you could see the future is bright. I was planning on DCing down every 5 cents. Since it's dropping fast, I'm doing 10 cents. There you go. Good point. Pay attention to the so-called gurus during a downtrend. They always seem to disappear. Hexicans stay strong. Let's see. Then I caught up to where I'd gone back to. NFT is so much more than funny cartoons. It's protection, tickets, event enrichment, etc. I don't know. What about Seth Green, who just had an article on Cointelegraph saying that his NFT got stolen and now he can't produce his show? I guess that's to your point that maybe the rights are, maybe code is law and copyright infringement would occur if somebody got their Bored Ape stolen, and then I don't know. It's a whole thing. I'm not sure if people could figure out what I was saying there, but I don't care. Who cares about that? Maybe some people. I don't know. I don't have any Bored Apes, so I don't have to worry about that problem. And like the NFT market is dumping and will continue to dump, likely because of macroeconomics. So, Maddie, will Hex Whales move eHex over to PulseChain? No, because of Hart's Law. I like that. You answered your own question. There you go. I agree. Because they don't want cheap Hex anywhere. Neither does Richard. Agreed, it is a valid ecosystem. Once PLS launches, many creators will adopt it. We may need to show them the way. Unless they like high fees. I'm not sure if NFT, like, it's kind of a guard walled in it. It's kind of, I have so much trouble saying that phrase. It's kind of a walled garden to have high fees, which does benefit to some extent these low liquidity NFTs. So, can someone tell me the max supply of Pulse and Pulse X? Thank you. That's a good question. It's based on how much got sacrificed. So it was roughly 10,000 points for every dollar sacrificed. So let's go back to Wolfram Alpha. So we can just type in words and get a calculation. Makes sense. So we know that about 600 billion was sacrificed, but that was real money, not just OA money. So it went up to 14 billion, didn't it? 14 billion times 10,000. Let me see. 1,000, million, trillion. So it's 140,000 trillion. No. 140 trillion. Is that right? 1,000 billion trillion. 140 trillion. It's 140 trillion for PulseChain. And then what was the final sacrifice total after the OA went in for Pulse X? I don't remember. I don't even. It's more than that for Pulse X, I believe. That's interesting. That's relevant, I think. But then if we think about like how much is not controlled by the OA, if we want to do that calculation, then it would be 600 million times 10,000. That would be 6 trillion coins. And then I can do this for PulseX, the non-OA coins, because that was $1 billion sacrificed non-OA coins, and that would come out to 10 trillion. Interesting. So the non-OA supply of PulseX may be like 40% higher than PulseChain. I don't know that I've heard anybody say that yet. So you heard it here first, unless you heard it somewhere else, and then you heard it here after that. Awesome question, ASMR Owl. Shout out to you. Lots of good response from NFT community on Twitter. Quite fond of the Pulse system being launched and not having to do a thing to transfer. Free NFT. Exactly. What's up, Warped Impulse? How's it going, Optimus Kevtron? What up, Maddie and all hexagons? Oh, hey, I almost forgot. I was going to make a point about something. So if the OA owns 97% of the supply of liquid hex, then that means that the market cap of hex is like way lower than even Nomics is reporting it. So like, if you take off your rage blinders for a second, like, you know, try to listen to what this really means, like this perspective, let's call it. Like, Hex is undoubtedly the number one crypto on crypto Twitter in terms of engagement and community, like outspokenness. Even bigger than Bitcoin and Ethereum already. So what that tells you is that, like, even though our community is much smaller than even like Dogecoin and other stuff, we're the loudest. We're the ones who are locked in for the longest period of time and doing the most synchronized marketing, doing the most synchronized, like, organic growth, right? So that shouldn't be, you can't overlook that. It's like more opportunity, because the lower the price of hex goes, like the lower the non-OA market cap is. And that's, again, like significant opportunity, because the awareness of hex is not going away. The more people who keep having touch points with it, the more postcards that get sent out all over the world, and the more time that passes, it's more likely that we will onboard more people, especially with things like PulseChain leading the way and providing free marketing to millions of people by giving them free money. In other words, you shouldn't have expectations. This narrative can be dangerous. Dylan Murray, I agree. But it can also be dangerous for people to not understand, like, the history of hex and how we got this far and how much farther we could go. Because if Ethereum and Bitcoin had founders or early members, or let's just take Ethereum. If Ethereum had founders dumping, which I know it did, because Vitalik has sent ETH to like foundations and stuff, like, good for him. We love that. But he's also like, well, Vitalik like got rich off Bitcoin too. Everything that's not Bitcoin and Ethereum like had a lot of founders dumping. And I forgot, Ethereum did have founders dumping, because it wasn't just Vitalik that made it. It was like, what's his face that started Cardano? Charles Hoskinson like gave all of his ETH to his secretary. And I don't know how much solid hands were going on there, but probably a lot. DJ Pollywood, what's going on? Million Pulse tour coming to a city near you in the USA. Sounds good. Can't wait. Just wanted to hop in and let you guys know that I'm completely unshaken by the price. I sold Hex in 2022, and I'm letting everything ride to zero. So maybe you sold a little bit, now you're continuing to 2021. There you go. 162 watching, 116 likes. Hit the like and subscribe button, people. Or get out. Used to be a saying. They would always make the numbers go up, because some people would leave, but then more people would hit the like button, and YouTube would bring more people in to replace the haters. Yeah, I'm staked. Nothing earlier than 2025. I'm holding strong until then. Unshaken. Very cool. What is the tour website to follow? ksb.tv is what it is. Dylan says, people forget we verify things and don't take people's word. That's why we like immutability. You have no proof that the OA buys besides someone's word, nor should you expect it or promote it. False. to some extent. Like, anybody can do the chain analysis and see that the OA has 97% of the supply, which proves that it bought Hex, because the contract does not allow the OA to have 97% of the supply this early unless people were gifting 40% of the supply to the OA and not telling anybody, which I find highly unlikely. So if somebody has done the chain analysis, you have a point that if you didn't do the chain analysis yourself, then you're taking somebody's word for it. However, are we really arguing about something that can be proven? And it, if you have proof otherwise, then please let it be known. Yeah, I think that the price performance is some indication, and just the game theory surrounding the rest of it, that it's not necessary to believe that the OA bought, but it's also obvious. So, I mean, sure, you could get really technical to the point where, like, have you read every line of the code? Like, very few people have. I trust somebody who has read every line of the code. I've put myself into a situation where somebody, where, like, I was working with Future Us and he proved himself to be trustworthy to me. Like, yeah, like, at the end of the day, there's still trust in the world. Like, you have to trust that the internet doesn't go down. You have to trust that, like, when you go out, that you're not going to die from a comet or a shooter or anything like that. Like, there's trust. You have to have trust to, like, pay your cell phone bill. You're not going to remove all trust. And verify if you want, and don't take people's word for it if you don't want to, but, like, there's layers to that, and there's a spectrum of verifiability. And at the end of the day, man, like, I know you and I are retired, like, we have endless time to sit around and, like, say things, basically summarize things that other people that, to propagate, like, trusted signals, right? But that's people trust me. I'm one of the most trusted hexagons because I'm consistently showing up, giving the truth that people can verify up until that point, right? So, like, yeah, I don't know. At the end of the day, you could FUD, like, your seed words, and you could say that, like, there's no way for you to ever know that somebody didn't put software on your keyboard if you didn't make the keyboard yourself when you first got the seed words, or that Trezor and Ledger didn't, like, screw you over. Like, there's always trust in the system when you're dealing with digital things. Like, but the idea is to minimize the trust as much as possible. And I'm not really just talking to you. I'm talking to, like, people in general, because I think you bring up a good point, and I'm trying to, show the other side of it, and people can decide for themselves, like, how much proof they need. But at the end of the day, there's different philosophies and different reasons to care whether the OA is buying or not, or whether it did buy. To me, it's important that people can understand what happened, how we got this far. And, maybe this will inspire some people to go learn Chainalysis, and then we'll have more Chainalysis people. But anyway, could be a dangerous narrative. Yeah. But still, people are going to be repelled who are, like, legacy investors, and it's an evolving system, right? It's It's interesting. You have a point. I'll think about it more. Dangerous opinion. Part is my opinion. Right on. I respect your opinion. Hola, Hexicans. The real discount is on t-shirt price. Time to go get a few more. There you go. Good point. I've been to Vegas twice this year, and I bet or lost $1. DJ Pollywood, that's very rare. Good job. If liquidity is totally removed from eHex, I think long-term stakers are screwed. No? I mean, not all liquidity would be removed because there's too many actors in play, and because if it started to be removed, then I would put in $1 of liquidity and then burn the keys. So I don't think it could be totally removed, but like, I'm just trying to make sense of your question and think out loud to give you the best answer. Like, as I said on Game Theory Gang, I think right now we're a little bit higher than our average has been over time, but also our price was higher before. But like right now, there's like $10 million there's almost exactly $10 million of USD in the liquidity pool. And then there's also 1.8K ETH, which is, do the math really quick, 18,000 times, what's ETH at, like 1750 or something? There's like $3 million, $3.1 million, let's say, of ETH. So there's $13 million of liquidity. You know, Hex is good with $2 million, or it was in the past, with $2 million of liquidity, $5 million of liquidity. That would all be fine. And we would expect some weird stuff like that to happen right before the fork. If we know about it, then those liquidity providers will pull their liquidity so that it doesn't get harvested by the fixer bot. You don't know what all that means, then might not worry about it. But the idea is that, like, I think a lot of people are predicting, a lot of experts, including myself, are predicting that liquidity will continue to go down. And, you know, I even made a note of this earlier, that something about how, no, it was something I heard earlier on a show today. It might have been Gunther. I watched a ton of shows today, though, so like I don't want to misattribute it. But sorry, I didn't keep track of who said it. As liquidity goes lower, it could go so low that it would be hard for bigger whales to cash out millions of dollars. That could be another reason why Whale 13 cashed out, because they were anticipating a move to where people wouldn't be able to cash out for a while, like $2 million, like it did. So long-term stakers being screwed, liquidity can always be added back in, and there would be incentive to do that once the price had done the move that it was going to do. And so I don't think people would be screwed. I think it's just normal market dynamics for that to fluctuate, especially in something that is designed to pump and going into a fork where the liquidity is harvested. This dip is going to make Hexagon stronger than ever once it's over. Yeah. And the dip isn't real in the sense that everybody could buy this low of a price. That doesn't mean the price can't go lower, right? But that's worth mentioning as well. There's weird stuff. According to Crypto Coffee's guest, the New World Order currency is coming for the whole world to entitle to buy subsidized goods. I mean, it already exists. We already have a digital dollar. The dollar is already the world reserve currency. Like, sure, they could call it something else. There could continue to be competition, but at the end of the day, we've already been inching towards that for so long that I don't think it's going to happen as a single event. Now, people might all wake up at the same time if education goes viral, but the incentives would predict that like central bankers would put in enough effort to like keep inching into it so much that not everybody freaks out, and that they create enough stakeholders that enough people go along with it, right? Like one way or another. T-shares are hella cheap now. Now's the time to buy money printers. There you go. What is worth more, a Lambo or an NFT? Great question. Maddie, isn't the rate of SAC different for some people? So $1 SAC for 10,000 points, and some SAC rate is $10 for 10,000 points. So is not the actual calculation for the supply? Yeah, well, it's not the exact calculation. I mean, you could go. I'm trying to think of a better way to do it. I mean, you could go download the SAC balances from GitHub or the sacrifice checker. Like, yeah, you could go do that, but it's like my number is probably, I don't know, within like 10% maybe. So it's like, is that good enough? I mean, I don't have anything better, but yeah. So like, you know, so 90% or 95% of this numbers of it came in at a 10,000 point rate. Although I don't know, maybe if the OA got a completely different rate, got like 7,000 points, then it's actually more rare than the numbers I gave. But what were the numbers I gave again? 10 trillion and 6 trillion. Oh, that's easy to remember because it's just a 10,000 multiple of how many dollars were put in. But remember, that's non-OA that we calculated. And for with OA, it was 140 trillion for PulseChain, and we didn't know what it would be for. But like, so that's what we've got for now. You know, if the you know, if the non-OA for PulseChain is not 6 trillion and it's really 5.5, you know, or 5.9 or something, like, doesn't seem like that big of a difference to me. You could argue that, but I mean, it could be calculated, and it's public information, although it might not be as easy as just giving you a rough guess. It should be included. I downloaded all of the data for both of the sacrifices from pulselead.xyz and pulsexlead.com. One of them I had to reach out because the site kept crashing, so I just reached out to them on Twitter and they sent me the entire file. So I have that, but that doesn't include the OA. So, and it's not like the final numbers. And I haven't actually looked at the final numbers in the sacrifice checker to like check out the OA addresses. That'd be interesting to do, because we should be able to calculate it to the extent that the numbers, you know, are being updated. So, so if I go to the sacrifice checker, the last time it was updated was 5/15. So that's interesting to me, because it was being updated like every day for a while, for like 5 days, and then it was being updated like twice a week or something for a while. So those 515 numbers, which are the latest, are the closest thing we have to the final numbers. And then, gosh, if it's really that easy for me to do it, like in a few clicks of a button here, I will do it. Why not? Okay, here's the, because I just, some of this information I have like right on hand. So here's the PulseX sacrifice address. Let's take that address and plug it into the sacrifice checker and see if the OA coins have been calculated yet. Okay, so we've got this address like 0x075E ending in DDC8. I'm gonna copy that off of Etherscan. I'm gonna paste it here. It doesn't come up. Weird. Okay, so that's the PulseX sacrifice. What about the Pulse sacrifice? Okay, that's this address 0x9CD83 ending in 62CB. Yeah, not working. Or it's not showing up. Interesting. So like, what if we grab another address just to see if my way of inputting it is correct, so we can get a little bit more definitive here. Oh, here's Daphne's address, the person who came on when we did the 25-cent party on my stream. Yep, that's working. PLSX sacrifice. Nice. Well done. $500. Cool. Okay, so it looks like those aren't up yet for the OA addresses. Rough math doesn't count liquidity pools either. The only thing we can verify is the flush address filling up the AA before the day ended mostly. Hex only survives while new money comes in. Well, depends whether you're valuing your wealth in money or Hex, and most people in dollars. So you may have a point, but define survive, because it can go really low and then it will get oversold and then people will buy it again. So it's not that it's going to, it's not going to die. It'll just go down more than you want it to. I usually bag up Hex every month. This month I bagged up 3 times, taking this opportunity that's been given to me. Thanks, Maddie. Your streams are very soothing and relaxing. Always enjoy them. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Thanks, Peppy. Later, friends. Thanks, Maddie, for going live. Someone said that OA gets some of the haircuts. Yeah. The OA gets 50% of the emergency end stakes. Later, friends. See you later, Thomas. Blessed Secretary of Charles got 300K ETH. Yes, that's how the story goes. Yeah, that's the nuance. Thanks for agreeing, Dylan. Hexbear, if the OA is buying, you should be able to prove it. So the OA was split up into 2,000 different wallets, and again, like, yeah, we're trusting the audits. Like if you remember, Silver the Antidote used to like show a giant spreadsheet that he spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours going over, like, these are the top, 14 addresses of the OA, and like this is where they moved all their coins to. So like, it's true, I didn't get a copy of all that, but like there's still videos that are up. You can go back and screenshot them and like take the addresses out and look at them. That's where I would start if you don't know where else to look, because you can trace them back to where Silver the Antidote had like found the starting point, basically. So might be worth doing a stream about that sometime or something if everybody's doubting. All I'm saying is after the AA, I don't think the OA increased its holdings. Oh, that's a good point. So you're saying that, well, but it increased during the sacrifice phase because it got sacrificed like 2 to 3%. And we're counting the OA as like all the granddaughter addresses and like different shit like that, right? And anything that it's presumably controlled by the founder. So you think that the recycled, if you think that the recycled ETH bought up 95% of the liquid hex and then did a 40x, whatever the true number of ETH that was sacrificed was, which would not have been like 1.9 million ETH or 2.3 or whatever the gross volume was, but could have been, I don't know if we can reverse calculate that. And we could say it'd be like half of it was spent recycling because the OA accumulated twice as much as the starting point, or accumulated, I don't know. There might be some like logical math that we can do to say like it was 20x recycled or 2x recycled or something like that. I'll have to ask my friends who are smarter at logic and math than I am, and I'll get back to you about that. Or maybe you're one of the friends who's smarter at those things. But that'd be interesting to think about. Like, what's the, because that would be the, I don't know, one of the more expensive. You could, yeah, I don't know. You could probably get a minimum amount that the OA spent doing some sort of chain analysis, or maybe you can calculate it even better. Somebody might be able to show how much ETH could be left or something. I don't know. Forgot to mention, Maddie, your experience and knowledge is much valued and appreciated as well. Quattro Cinco, yeah. Maddie, when are you getting an invite to the castle? Well, as soon as I turn into a Playboy model, I guess. Hey everyone, hope you're all staying healthy. Yeah. See, I was gonna invite Richard to my house in America, because that would be prove all the haters wrong, right? So I don't have a castle though, so it might not be cool enough. Just bought some of the dip. YOLO. What's up, Rock Edison? Hope you're all staying healthy. Pulse Lord, nice. Don't sell the dip. Good call. Hexagon 720. Good to see you, Maddie. Good to see you. The hex price is being held down to paint an amazing one on Pulse. Am I right? It could be. That's another good reason to consider. So, well, I'm glad that time has flown by. I hope that this information has been useful. We've talked a lot about the actual numbers of what the OA controls and what that means for everybody. creating some speculation and opining about, what we know and what we don't know about ETH being recycled and buybacks and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I hope you also learned about fear and greed and different exercises you could choose to do at your own risk that would give you more experience mastering fear and greed and staking, paying your future self. So with that being said, I am going to play this awesome remix of the intro. It's mostly just updated graphics, but I worked on it for quite some time today. Oh, by the way, come to the Chicago meetup. It's 1.5 hours south of Chicago in Kankakee, Illinois, at Hexy's animal shelter, which is a $2 million facility that was funded by a Hex Shark Art, who I will be there with, along with Johnny Chaos and a handful of other Hexicans, at least, if not more. We may have a celebrity come by. We'll be doing a live stream. I'll be buying everybody Red Bull. We will probably go to dinner and have drinks. I will have the DeLorean there, along with Corvettes and the Hex photographer himself, Pascal, will be there to take anybody's picture. If you're a YouTuber, you could get pictures with the green screen so that you have plenty of images for your thumbnails. This is a really great opportunity to stock up on group photos. And so hope to see everybody there. You can learn more on my Twitter or at Medium account, which is mattyallin.medium.com. Awesome. So yeah, I guess that'll be the next stream that I do. Might be an update to let you know if there's a celebrity coming, or will just be the actual event itself. We'll do a little live stream there with Johnny Chaos and everybody. So with that being said, thanks for tuning in. Hit the like and subscribe button. Stake wisely, my friends, and peace out.
It's from Matty ALLin of Hex Therapy Live. I like Matty. Matty tries to make the world a healthier place. He's a mental health professional. He's done research.
Big videos on sudden wealth syndrome.
There's nothing that a human being could do better than try and heal his fellow man.
Matty ALLin's got that covered. Does emotional, feel good, mind management, emotion stuff like as his gig, because he's a therapist. That's what he does for a living. Like, he helps heal people.